All right, family, what's going on? Please tell me if y'all good. If y'all good, I'm trying to get all fancy like, and my computer is acting up. Okay, we good now. All good, all good. I needed to see myself on the screen and up there. So what's going on, family? Welcome. Hit one if you can hear me. Share, like, and subscribe. Share, like, and subscribe. Y'all, I thank y'all for supporting me. I'm sorry we on niggerdom time, but I got caught in traffic trying to get here. Y'all know, y'all pray for me because that DC traffic is no joke. But I am here. I am here. So, family, last week's conversation was fantastic. I enjoyed the conversation. It dealt with something called critical race theory, the whole concept and the ideology of it. Um, so with that being said, I decided to bring some more people up here so we can have a good conversation in reference to it. When we look at racism as a whole and how it's going to be taught for the future generations, I think the Black community needs to take this very serious. What I'm noticing is the media is constantly talking about critical race theory, as if it's a bad thing. I don't see why it's bad or how it could be bad if it's taught correctly. Um, but with that being said, before I start going into my spiel, let me go ahead and let my people in. First, I'm gonna let my brother in. Errol Spike, hello. Say hello to the people.
Hello, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
All right. I got some old faces and new faces, y'all. So just be prepared. I got some folk up here. This is gonna be an amazing conversation. It's gonna be a group of believers having real life dialogue about real issues in the community. So just be ready. So I brought my other brother up here, Mr. Gardis himself. Say something to the people.
Greetings, everybody, and greetings, Sister E. And thank you for having me on this discussion that we're about to have.
He got a brew beard, y'all. He trying to ease into the community. Y'all see this?
Hey, this is just my winter look. When summer come around, I shave all this off.
I'm messing with you. You know I have to mess with you. All right, now I got Mr. J Mac himself. Say hello, my brother.
Greetings, and hello everybody, and how y'all doing out there tonight? In my radio voice.
You got the whole radio set up, sir. All right, y'all. We got a newbie up here. I need y'all to be nice to her. Don't be too hard on her. Y'all know y'all hard on new people up here, but y'all gonna be nice. I'm gonna bring. She is showing her. Y'all know honestly. Let them see your avatar first, so they can know who you are.
Yeah.
That's who I have. Miss Honestly herself. She decided to come up. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Honestly.
Honestly. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Honestly, come on.
Hey.
Say
Grace and
something.
peace, everybody. Grace and peace. I've been excited to come on Sister E's program for a minute. We kept missing each other, so I'm very happy to make this happen. So.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I mean, you first came up there on Baran's channel. You came up there with your sword in hand. I said, "This sister is no joke. She don't need no help. She good. You weren't playing no games with the word. And what I love about your spirit is you're fair.
Yeah,
You're fair.
that's
So
the aim.
that's why I said everybody up here is fair. But you came up there with your sword. You ain't no joke. I just be like, she got it. She got it. So I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna let everybody talk. First thing I want to kind of throw up there because y'all know I can run my mouth. And I'm gonna be quiet for a minute. But I'm gonna give a round robin. I'm gonna let everybody give me their idea of what they think critical race theory is. So whoever want to go first, and what does it mean to you? And just give me your thoughts on it, and then we can go from there. So whoever want to go first, they can go.
Ladies first.
Oh, well, okay, great. So, I've actually had one of my friends who is a believer, is Hawaii, but has her doctorate in actual critical race theories and whiteness studies. She came and I actually did an interview with her on this very subject. So, to my understanding, in my limited study, because it's a huge area of study, to put it simply, critical race theory is the study of how overt racism became covert, and where it began to trickle its way into. It actually came from critical legal studies. So they were looking at laws and how there were very overt laws that we saw throughout history, especially at the end of the Emancipation Proclamation. So you had this short period afterwards called the Reconstruction, where Black people seem to be doing great, but shortly after Reconstruction, a lot of horrible things happen. So then you have shortly after, well, not shortly after, for about, I want to say, 100 years, there were all these laws being put in place to keep us held down. And so certain lawyers began to look at how the overt racism that was in our society became very covert. So that way you go from legal slavery, straight out calling people chattel, to what we think is the abolishment of slavery, but it's really slavery by another name in the 13th Amendment, by saying you are now allowed to have slavery if the person is a prisoner.
Right.
So that's literally like, so the 13th Amendment never truly abolished slavery. It just said your slavery is now just for prisoners. So as a result, what does that have to do with anything? Then all of a sudden, it becomes illegal if a Black person doesn't have a job, and then people won't hire them. So that's what I mean by we have to look, as they say, the devil quite literally is in the details. So we have to look at that. So that's my understanding of it. And it trickles down into various practices. And now people are mislabeling anything as CRT that makes people feel uncomfortable, but that's not the case at all. It really comes from critical legal studies. It has moved its way into various fields of studies in order to see how overt racism became covert. That's it.
Excellent.
And Timing, you brought
Um,
up points.
okay, actually, to build on top of what honestly speaking was saying, and I love that. That's just spot on. Um, I look at it in terms of, let's say she described the legal aspects as basically the philosophy, are basically the atomic structure that builds that which we call infrastructure, basically the political system, the economic system, the military system. All of that, or what she just spoke right now, builds that what we see now, and it's that particular machinery that that's in place right now that people don't want to look at, that they don't want to analyze. They don't, because again, for most people who don't understand what racism actually is, they think of it only terms as a linear one-to-one, person-to-person thing, but it's not exactly that. The people themselves are just nothing but the results, but the infrastructure is the main thing. And so critical race theory is basically looking at the atomic structure of the infrastructure, the philosophical aspect of it, to see how it affects and why it affects people who are called minorities, even though we're not. but but that's how I look at it. And so when people say CRT, it's basically when people have that fear reaction, they're saying, "Oh no, our infrastructure that which has given us power and privilege is being questioned." And I see that if it was a wall, the wall is vibrating, and I'm seeing pieces fall off of it. Is this house going to stand? That is what people are concerned about. That's what people who don't want to deal with this are concerned about. They're looking at their house begin to collapse from the atomic level and up. So that's how I look at critical race theory.
All right. Who's ever next, they can say something. I'm kind of managing camera and screen, so
Well, I don't think there's anything else to explain other than where it I guess derived or originated and why. We've heard names of Dirk Bell, Richard Delgado, and Gene Stefani, and some others who are in the I call it the collegiate arena, who came together to put these theses and theories and things together, as was stated, to highlight the negative impacts of racism and Jim Crowism and the whole 9 yards on the systems, the government systems and institutions. So I guess we can say too, what critical race theory is not is an emphasis on individual racism or individual prejudice or individuals, period. It's just on institutions, and so and we're going to get into it again, but obviously some people have run amok with the word CRT.
I agree. Goddess?
Yeah, so I mean, what the previous people had commented on is, basically, in a nutshell, what it is in regards to CRT being a higher academic discipline that's taught in basically law school and in graduate level studies. And what it's not being taught at is at the kindergarten through 12th grade level, and not even at the undergrad level in some colleges. But they use conservative, especially white conservatives, use this as a pejorative of, indoctrinating students with this racism stuff. And this is, how I basically interpret it, because, obviously, as one of the previous speakers had spoke about, is as we start to learn about the history of this country in a sense of how it was built racially and on racism, we start to understand the weaknesses that this country has morally when it comes to the treatment of non-white people, especially Black people and Native Americans, who are practically, extinct when you look at, when you basically look at their numbers. But as Jay had also talked about, looking at it, and some of the others had talked about looking as a system, because one of the weapons of white supremacy, racism, and I use those terms interchangeably, racism and white supremacy, because I think they're synonyms. But when you look at the biggest weapon of racism, white supremacy is confusion. We tend to look at racism, and I think somebody previously said it as an individual type of level, whereas racism should be looked at as a system, as an overall system, as, not just I hate somebody because of their skin color. This is not about hating somebody or, hating somebody because they're Black. This is about a system of power that was developed by white Europeans starting in the 15th, 16th century, when they started to colonize the New World, when they started to enslave Africans. This is when the system of white supremacy started to take its course globally, because this is another thing too. We got to stop with this. We got to stop with thinking that racism is just an American thing. This is a global thing. And when you're talking about how racism affects all non-white people across the globe, it may look differently from what it is in America, because racism is in Africa as well, even though majority of the population of Africa is Black. But they are affected by colonialism. They are affected by many things. You often wonder why these different ethnic groups in Africa is always fighting each other. It's because they have not been removed with the colonial mindset. And this is when, Europeans and some Americans come in and they tell, these group of people, you better than them. You need to take this land. And then next thing you know, we fighting over nothing, while they're digging up the coltan, digging up the gold, digging up the diamonds, digging up all kind of stuff that gives these multi-billion-dollar corporations millions, billions, trillions of dollars each year. So we need to stop looking at racism as I hate such and such because of their skin color. That is not what racism is. the basis of racism is power. And the first way you take power or you make certain people powerless is not teach them a history. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to teach you that this country was built on democratic ideas. This country was built off of hardworking people. No, this country was built off the backs of African slaves. Simple as that.
All right, Slick, you got something?
It's kind of hard to follow all of that right there because they basically covered everything that needed to be said. And maybe if my profile picture wasn't upside down, I wouldn't have went last. But like they said, it's not about an individual thing. It's not like just because I got a black next door neighbor that this whole thing is going on. It's bigger than that. And I think January 6th spoke to that when this whole nation was in an upheaval because they really frightened that their whole system of tyranny is over. So when that day you can see it in their eyes. They think it's over. And so in order to stop the momentum of stuff like that, they want to rewrite history. We all know what happened in history and what happened to us and how we built this country up. They talk about everything. Whenever the president first got in there, the first thing he did was create a bill for the Asians. But I ain't heard no reparations talk going on, but I heard $30 million for crack pipes. Yep. That, I mean, we can't fix it we can't fix it like that. I mean, the only thing gonna save us is God. That's the only thing that's gonna save this situation. And I ain't got much to say because, like I said, every single one of the panelists they did an excellent job explaining it. So that's really all. That's all I gotta say.
If I can follow up real quick on what Rod said, I agree with you about rewriting history. They're even trying to rewrite January 6th.
Political discourse.
Yeah, but just so the people know that the crack pipe thing is fake news. That you ain't gonna find that in no bill and no document or any press conference from the president or his press secretary. No, that the right wing totally made that crap up. What they actually was doing, which is there have been drug prevention programs in every state pretty much for however long. And so the federal government, which really was started on Obama or Trump, one of them, and all the Biden administration was trying to put more money into it. And the right wing got some fake news from one of their right wing websites, and they all ran with it. And that's what happened. That's how all they got out there. Now, because of that, it's because of the big firestorm that's causing the Biden administration is pulling money back. I thought you guys should know that, and the money that would go to normally help the states with drug prevention is being pulled back because of stupidity politics. FYI.
But you know what's so interesting is here when we talk about racial differences when we're dealing with drug abuse. Crack epidemic hit. When it hit, folks was going to jail. Mothers was going to jail. Fathers was going to jail. Families were separated. Even the ones that were addicted was going to jail. Period. They didn't talk about rehabilitation. It was your rehabilitation was doing time. But when the opioid addiction hit, now let's talk about rehabilitation. Now, when you know about the opioid addiction, it derived from oxycodone addiction, getting medicine, pain relievers, and being the prescribed pain relievers, and people got addicted to it, and then they ultimately led to abusing it. And ultimately, what happened was they created all these things of let's get rehabilitation for drugs. Let's do this. Let's get, they even went as far as, because it led to people having heroin addictions. The reason I know is because I had someone in my family who experienced that, and they shifted over to other drugs because they couldn't get a hold to the oxycodone anymore, because they started putting so many restrictions on it. They wanted that high. So with that being said, they even show differences how they deal with drugs and in which communities, because ultimately majority of the communities that was impacted by the opioid addiction was the white communities. So they didn't want to send them to jail. They wanted to create some type of rehabilitation program. They even had ambulances walking around with that pen to bring people back that were, that were overdosing. They didn't do that with the crack mamas, the crack
Well,
babies.
yeah.
With that being said, that's all I want to say. I'm gonna dial it back. Anybody else got something to say?
No, I was going to say that was the whole that was the biggest motivation for the prison reform during the Trump administration, opioid crisis, because they knew that they were going to have to start sending all those people to jail, and they didn't want to be sending a bunch of white folk to jail, white kids to jail, who's getting strung out on opioid. And I'm of the opinion that no person that is strung out on drugs should be sent to jail.
Yep.
Unless they're out breaking into people's houses or doing other crimes. But if they're just getting high, how is that a deterrent? How are you locking up people for getting high? That's just stupid. That was never going to work in the first place.
Correct. And then another thing, and I'm gonna chime in and I'm gonna be quiet with marijuana. People are in jail right now for selling marijuana. And guess what now? You got all these cannabis farms out. Ain't none of them went to jail. And majority of them quite a few white people own them. See, the rules change when the face change. So I'm gonna let Gardens go.
And let's not be mistaken. The crack didn't go away. There are still crack addicts out there. But however, here's the interesting part about it as people focus on the opioids. Now, a couple of years ago, they started finding with crack, they were being laced with fentanyl. And people started smoking crack and started ending up dead. Now, me, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was I wouldn't say it was rare, but it was kind of hard to overdose on crack. Crack was like one of those things that you can smoke a lot and you could still be alive. It's not like heroin where you could overdose on heroin or even cocaine. But crack was one of those things where you had to basically smoke crack almost every hour for 3 weeks in order to overdose on crack. But now they're finding that crack is being laced with fentanyl and it is killing folks. And so this is not really covered in the news anymore because people think that crack went away. Crack did not go away. There's still crack addicts in our neighborhoods. And like I said, because they're ending up dead, it's not big news anymore. Because for one, when you kill crack addicts like that, they're not they're not funding, the industry anymore because the customers are dying. See, this was one of the things that reaped a lot of monetary benefits in the crack industry back in the 80s because, the same customers kept coming back over and over again. But with folks dying, which is even worse, there's no news coverage. And because of the fact that most of the crack addicts, that are dying are Black, even though there are white crack addicts as well, it's not getting news coverage. So, here's another example of racist, news reporting that nobody's talking about. Everybody thinks that crack went away. No, it hasn't. The crack addicts are just dying now.
You know what? And I heard something on the news that kind of bothered me. And I said, again, the system has reared its ugly head. It's the system that I have a problem with. Because if you do away with the system, all the individuals connected to it, their mindset is going to die because they're not going to have a system to hold on to. The root of it needs to go away. I was listening to CNN, I think it was yesterday, and I play CNN all day. I don't know why, but I'm just addicted to do it. It's not soothing, but I'm staying aware of what's going on. And they talked about the virus. I'm gonna just say that to make sure I don't get any trouble. And they brought up the people that were the numbers that were their concern. And the number was the demographic that they were worried about was Black male individuals with high risk issues. but they made a point to say the African American community is being impacted greatly by the virus. And I sat there and I said, wait, hold on, hold on. I think if anything, I would say if our community is impacted, it's because of, the poor healthcare system. We know we have a very poor healthcare system, and most of the time, the hospitals we can go to, when we don't have good insurance in most cases, are county level hospitals, and those hospitals are horrible. We call them chop shops in Memphis. We got one called the Med. The Med, if you go in, it's supposed to be the trauma hospital that's good for trauma. That's all you need to go for is for that. If you're going for anything outside of that, that's a chop shop. But that's I think you can pretty much go there and for free, just about. But it's the poor healthcare system. But they want to just bring us up always in the news, and then they're bringing up the fact that they don't want to get vaccinated. Well, ask yourself this question. Let's talk about history. Let's go back to the theory and the system of why most Black people are afraid to get vaccinated, why Black people are afraid to go to the hospital. Because once you check in, they scared that they ain't gonna be able to check out. Plus all the testing that they did on Black people. They don't want to talk about that in the history books. They don't want to talk about the Tuskegee experiment. They don't want to talk about things like the school of gynecology came from the fact of Black women being tortured. See, that's the history they don't want to talk about. But that's, I just want to bring that up. But everybody else, come on, add on what y'all got, what y'all thoughts are. Come on, Honest.
I just want to say this even connects to the topic of CRT, in that in a weird way, racism saved Black people, majority of Black people, from the opioid epidemic. And what do I mean by that? Just as you pointed out earlier, it started from pain pills being prescribed. Where were they being prescribed? To minors, to people in the Midwest, like in Virginia, and where a lot of folks from the city would call like the sticks, middle America, right? But if you know anything about pain and Black people are less likely to get treated for pain management when they go to the hospital. We have to fight in order to get the same level of care. So what happened was, one, it wasn't Black people in these areas, and two, by the time these painkillers, if you will, hit these areas where urban people were, the doctors had this subconscious bias, and sometimes flat out bias, that they wouldn't even prescribe Black folks those particular medicine anyway. So we have like surgery on our mouths, and white folks are getting sent home with oxycodone and all of this other stuff. And Black people, hey, here's some Tylenol, here's some ibuprofen, you go take it. Man. And so that bias in of itself was actually one of the things that was the catalyst to help prevent us from it. Now, also, I said before on my channel, before that, and that I'm a therapist, right? And part of what I do, I work in the city of Philadelphia. I don't want to give out too much of my personal information, but what I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor. If anyone knows anything about heroin, they know that Philadelphia is one of the number one spots in the entire nation. In fact, in North America, to get heroin. I don't know why. People come from California, Florida, Canada to get heroin in Philly. I don't know why, but it is. It just is, right? So one of the things that I do is I'm a trainer on Narcan. Narcan, to your point, Sister E, when you were talking about how people used to get the injections, the problem with the injection is it would instantly sober them up. People will wake up and just start screaming, run down the street, needle still in their leg, because they just automatically got sobered up. Now it's an actual inhalant that you put through their nose. It takes up to 7 to 20 minutes to get to working, right? So if you would, I just want to show people how dangerous this is. When y'all spoke about fentanyl, I'm gonna share my screen really quick. Hopefully, yeah, I'm gonna share my screen really quick so that people can see. And I'm gonna talk about fentanyl, carfentanil, how it all connects, and then I'm gonna be quiet.
I'm doing it. So go on, sis.
All right. So I'm gonna share my screen right now. I know that you all can see. Can you see what I'm showing you?
Yep.
All right, so you see that's heroin, right? So heroin, that's what it takes to overdose, that amount of heroin, right? In the other bottle is how much fentanyl you need to overdose. That's how much. Wow. Okay? That's how much you need to overdose. fentanyl is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. I said 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. The amount, and that fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, right? You have natural opioids. Heroin is more of a natural opioid, if you will. Opium is a natural opioid. They come from poppy seeds and things like that. And we can get into how this even connects to wars overseas and how they got our soldiers guarding poppy fields overseas for why, right? But that's a whole nother subject. Then you have what's called carfentanil. Carfentanil are elephant tranquilizers, is animal tranquilizers. The amount of carfentanil that you need to have someone overdose is the equivalent of what goes on the tip of a pen that you write with. Now, the reason why all of this is becoming put into what it is that people are consuming is because one, and particularly carfentanil, is less regulated because it's for animals. It's for animals. And so you're seeing the same system that pumped crack into California and in certain neighborhoods. You're seeing those very systems now trying to lace what it is that we have in our urban neighborhoods with hopes of creating a new generation. So they thought it was going to work. A lot of times people thought it was going to work by having people sip syrup, codeine. That's an opioid, sip syrup, codeine, and all of that. But it's not getting people strung out to the point that they're doing what individuals who are on heroin do. So all of this connects because it connects to policy, it connects to laws, it connects to certain systems. And I think it's very telling. Now, to J Mac's point, the Biden administration didn't buy crack pipes, but what they did is a part of it's a part of rehabilitation. And again, that's the area that I work at, part of the area that I work in for my job. So what they do, they have these places called injection sites that they were trying to bring to Philly. An injection site is basically, hey, you can come here and get high. And it's good. I'll give you some needles. We're gonna make sure you get high, and that's it. So you trade old needles for good needles. Now you've had that for a long time. So what they did was exaggerate. Well, if you could trade old needles for good needles, then according to this, you should be able to trade old crack pipes for new crack pipes. That's what happened. That was the exaggeration that occurred. However, in theory, somebody could, if they wanted to, in the name of that. So that's why it got so broad. They never named that but a person exaggerated what you could in theory do if you wanted to. And that's horrible. That's horrible. And yes, we see the dehumanizing of Black and brown and people of color. But that, again, to I might be butchering your name, Jardis's point, it was part of the aim of the creation of race to begin with. It was to create a power structure so that one group of people can stay in place. Correct. And it came from predatory capitalism, and our bodies were the literal capital. Correct. So all of that trickles into everything. So
I agree with you. I agree with you, sis. What's the most important part of when we look at the concept of critical race theory, or the construct of this particular concept of a system rather than an individual? You got to look at the system of how the system utilized drugs to be able to capitalize off of us. Ultimately, let's talk about what is it happened in the 80s, the Contra agreement, when you had Rick Ross and the when they was getting, was that at the time of, Freeway Rick Ross,
Iran-Contra scandal.
Yes, I couldn't remember. And how they were planning drugs to be able to fund, was it what was it, Cuba? What was it?
It was the Contras. It was the Contras. Yes. They were fighting the Sandinistas.
Yeah. Yes. So they were being able to fund them. So they were planting drugs in the Black community, which was ultimately destroying the Black community. And they don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, flooding them in Southern California. Yep. Matter of fact, one of my favorite TV shows that's exactly what it's about. And the TV show is called Snowfall, by the way.
I'm gonna have to write that down.
Yeah.
But when you listen to the story, Freeway Rick Ross, and how he was utilized it makes you realize that it's a system. And it's like, that was the goal, to plant drugs in the Black communities. It didn't go into the suburban white mothers and suburban white neighborhoods. It went straight into the hood. And what's interesting at that time, and I know you're getting ready, I really want us to let's look at the Reconstruction video you were talking about, J-Mac. But when you start delving into that history and how, because I was getting ready to go somewhere and it just slipped my mind. But when it was how it was used, I'm gonna come back to it. But ultimately, what I was trying to say is how they utilized the system to destroy the Black community. But right before that, the Black community was thriving. The Black community was able to maintain their own neighborhoods. You had Black families. You had whole families at the time. We had our own neighborhoods. We had our own businesses. I grew up in Memphis, and I lived in an area, in a district in Memphis that was a predominantly Black neighborhood that was owned by Black people that had their own businesses. They had their own rooming houses. They had all that. And what destroyed it was the crack epidemic. And it destroyed it. My mom owned a 50-bedroom rooming house that was passed down to her from her grandmother, with an apartment in the back. The reason she had to sell it, not because of the building was falling apart, it was the neighborhood around her. It was the neighborhood, and my mom said next door to her was my father, who she later on married. His mother owned a beauty shop and a rooming house. Across the street was an insurance broker that was Black, that had insurance contracts with the Black community. Around the block was a Black grocery store that everybody went to, and it was all Black. And when the crack epidemic came, everything fell apart.
Yeah, that drug was very devastating to the Black community as it spread across the North America. But I mean, obviously, it started in Southern California, and then it started spreading out. Very devastating, especially when the gangs start selling it. What's this? Is the movie? I don't know if anyone's seen this movie. It was on Prime. I mean, not Prime. Amazon. The Banker. Have you guys seen that?
No.
I think it's called The Banker. I could have it wrong, but basically, it was a true story about uh, two Black dudes who got together and formed a Black bank. Basically, well,
With Samuel L. With Samuel L. Right?
Yeah, that was on Apple TV.
Yeah, it was on Apple TV with
yeah,
Samuel
Apple TV.
L.
Yeah, I see the advertisement for that. Yeah, now I remember.
Well, they didn't. They basically ended up buying a bank, but they used a white man who to as the face. And it's a fascinating movie. It's a true story, and they ended up getting busted down by the feds because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. But it was just amazing watching what they had to do to go through to give Black people loans to buy homes. I mean, they were literally giving Black folks to buy homes and loans to buy homes, and where Black people during that time couldn't get, and they went down south back to where the guy was originally from to do that. But that was a fascinating movie. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I love about this is this conversation is not dealing with explaining what critical race theory is. What we're talking about is systems that we saw that impacted the black community that ties to what they would consider to be critical race theory. Well, and again, critical race theory is not an individual. An individual cannot destroy a whole community, but a system can. I was asked this question about a couple months ago on Maria's channel of, are you don't like white people, sister? Yes or no? So I have no beef with white people. I don't like the system of racism. That's what I want to see destroyed.
Right. That's exactly it. That's exactly we had to approach this whole thing. And like I said, but for those whom this system is benefiting, the insidious part of that is that it blinds them to the fact of that system is what's benefiting them, is what's destroying us at the same time. And they are literally, it's designed for them not to see it.
And speaking of not to see it, right? I think what's amazing is the way the system. We have to understand that the system was not set up for us. So a system that's not set up for you will never be organically designed to benefit you. That doesn't mean you
Right.
can't benefit from it individually. You know what I mean? Or in like, but that means collectively. It's just not. It's not meant for that. And I think what's amazing is I was just talking to one of my friends. She's white, right? She makes a lot of money. I mean, like a lot of money. And she was talking about how she was talking to, her family is from uh America, and she was talking to me and a few other people, and she started saying how she's over these like $billion industries, right? And someone on the line that she was talking to, was a couple of us. We were actually having Bible study, and they were just like, so that means that you must make X amount of money, right? They started mathing the math in their head, right? So what afterwards, when I spoke to her, she was just like, Leona, I was always taught that to talk about money was like not couth, like it was like tacky. And I was just like, yeah, that's because that's the white people's secrets. And she was just like, what? I said, you got to understand, your system is set up to make you think that the things that protect your position of privilege are actually improper or tacky to ask about. So that way you never mention how much money you make. Therefore, I don't even know what I should ask for if I go to the same job that you have, because you've been told it's tacky to even talk about it. And how am I going to find it out? I said, those are the white people's secrets, which is why if I say, hey, you have this advantage, you have this privilege, you don't even realize that it was baked into the soup of your culture. So you don't even get it. You
That's
don't
it.
even get it. And when I said that to her, she was like, oh my goodness, Leona, you are so right. Like, you are so right. There are so many things that we're taught just to stay quiet about. And I was like, yeah, so that you can protect your overall position of privilege. And that's part of how the racism in of itself work. You have the freedom to not even think or talk about it.
Yeah, but you know, she can afford not to know because of the fact that she benefits from it. Whereas
Bingo.
we, you know, like I said, one of the things that I said, you know, in my opening statement is that, you know, one of the biggest weapons of white supremacy against us is the confusion of it, and how we're still learning. I'm still learning about how to unpack this racist system, you know. And the thing is that it attacks us mentally and also spiritually. And another thing that keeps racism on what I like to call autopilot is it gets us fighting each other over, you know, petty ideologies, over ideas that don't even matter. You know, this is what racism does. You know, when we start talking about this whole thing of ADOS versus Black immigrants and foundational Black Americans or whatever, you know, we're not understanding that we came from a culture where we were enslaved and our ancestors were enslaved, and we're still paying for that. And then when we get brothers and sisters on the African continent coming over here, they still have a colonial mindset that was implemented by the Europeans. So
Mm-hmm.
when two traumatized people come together, what do? They're not talking anything productive. They are coming to bring their trauma to each other, not realizing that the trauma has been caused by the same white people who enslaved this person and colonized this person. So obviously, we're still not getting what this system does. It is, like I said, right now it's on remote control where we're fighting each other over little things, over petty things. And that's the one thing that we should start doing as a code. You know, it's like if somebody, you know, people who know me, I'm not a big fan of Barack Obama. But I remember people asking me, what do you think about Barack Obama? He said what he said. And that's all I got to say. What I tell you is none of your business. Now, if we were all in the private sector, not not on a platform like this, and you know we talked about Barack Obama, I would give you my opinion on it. But right now, that's a family conversation. That is not your conversation. So when white people start coming in, tell, well, what do you think about Clarence Thomas, or what do you think of what Candace Owens said? They said what they said. But if it's between us, I'll give you my opinion on what I really think of.
You better than me,
Right.
brother.
This table talk. This table talk.
I'll be lighting Candace up.
And you know what?
But you know what?
Yeah, you gotta name those. You gotta call them out from among us. They are
Right.
causing
Yes, ma'am.
division.
Yes,
Candace
ma'am.
So when white people start aggravating these arguments, it's like, you know,
No, I get what you're saying.
Purpose.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, if they coming to me asking me questions, I turn it around and ask them, "What do you think of them?"
Exactly.
I'm not going to give you my opinion until if I decide to give you my opinion, I want to know where you coming from. So, what do you think of Candace Owens? What do you think of Jesse Lee Peterson? What do you think of Tommy Sotomayor?
Exactly.
Exactly. What do you think of? Well, that's a different dude. I ain't gonna bring his name up, but so you're gonna come at me with these so-called smart people, because they call them the smart blacks. You know, you'll hear them say, "Oh, she's so smart," and I'm like, "What makes her smart?" Well, because she agrees with your premises, she agrees with your ideology, she agrees with your politics. That's what makes her smart.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I say is that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think a lot of times, to your point, we should not get caught up in the ridiculous arguments. Yeah, but we can say, yeah, no, that was wrong. Like I spoke recently how people were asking me, oh, what do you think about Joe Rogan and him saying the N-word? And I said, well, multiple things are true from this. Number one, we all knew Joe Rogan been racist. Number two, y'all only talking about Joe Rogan being racist right now, not because you care about black people, but because you want to take his independent platform. And then number three, you think we dumb enough to ride out with you and do it. And many of us are. So Joe been racist. Y'all been racist. Joe Rogan, Joe Biden, Joe Manchin, all the Joes been racist. And I don't care. Okay. I'm collected on what are we, hey, those who are ready to really plan and do the work, what are we willing to do? Because we have never collectively ever depended on this system to save us to the degree that I hear black people crying out to the system to save us before. Before, we were always like the white blood cells working against the infection in the system. Now it's like, hey, what are we doing? And I'm like, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They got their assignment. Your aim is to seek truth, pursue it, and then when you don't look to the left or the right, or if you do, you will see who are there with you pursuing the truth. That's where you see where your allies are. Once you understand where God has put you at, and you start walking in the light that he is, in the path that he has called you to, you start noticing, hey, it becomes less about this and it becomes more about the truth and purpose. And then you start seeing the devil behind these people we call devils. And then you get to call out those principalities on a different, that's when you become a threat. That's when you become a threat. When you get beyond all of that, you become a threat. When you realize, oh, it was greed that actually started racism. Oh, I get it. And that's a principality. That's a spirit. I get to call that out. That's when they killed Martin. They wasn't killing Martin. He talking about kumbaya and all this other stuff. They didn't kill Martin until he said, we coming to get the bag. Write the check. We coming to get it. They didn't kill what's his name? Malcolm, until when he said, we going to take the U.S. to court for human rights. All of a sudden, get your hand out my pocket. You understand what I'm saying? That's when they killed Patrice Lumumba. That's when they killed what's the dude? And I wasn't even a fan of this brother, but the dude that called Barack Obama a son of Africa, from Africa. He said he was going to get rid of the dollar
starts with Gaddafi.
Gaddafi. That's when they killed Gaddafi. Next thing you know, we came, we saw, he's dead. You want to become a threat, you attack their idols, which is this.
Yep.
We sitting up here arguing over profits, and they sitting up here arguing over profits. It's a different thing going on. So I say all that to say, I do agree that the reason why people want to have us arguing about CRT is simply because it is a distraction. But to Sister E's point, to everybody's point, once we understand that's a distraction, that's smoke and mirrors, then we can keep it moving and tell people, hey, listen, don't be fooled by this.
And you know what? This is the big reason why I said we as believers, Black believers, gotta learn how to come together.
Yes.
I'm Israel. Goddess is Catholic. Honestly, I think all of us are Christian, just period. I'm just gonna say that, regardless of what I call myself, and and regardless of how I see myself, I had to throw Catholic out there, guys, to mess with you. But we are still Black believers, and we're dealing with the effects of the system. The system don't see me as what I say I am. The system sees me as Black. You said something that was so profound to me, honestly, because that's something I had to learn about money. When you walk into these jobs, they don't teach you how to negotiate salary. They teach you how whatever salary they give you, you take it.
Right.
I didn't learn the art of negotiating salary until here in the past 5 years. Because if you they like you're asking for money, you're not supposed to ask. You're supposed to take what they give you. All while the other person who doesn't look like you probably makes more than you and knows how to ask to make more and probably below you. And you can't get mad because you walked in the door saying, okay, I'll take this, and don't know how to negotiate it. That money is the problem. But we don't know how to effectively do it. Because again, as long as we don't understand the system can do whatever it wants to do to us. If you know anything about HR going to lowball you off the rip at the very beginning. If the job is paying, the average salary for that job is paying $145,000 a year, they going to offer you 85 off the rip. I tell anybody, ask for the extreme price to the point they're sweating. Then you can negotiate from there. Don't ask for the middle. Don't ask for the bottom. Ask for the top. Do the research. Figure out what's in that area, the state that you're going to or wherever you go. What's the average salary for that? Ask for $30,000 to $40,000 more so you can have negotiating room. They don't teach you that, but they know how to do it. And we can't complain because they'll say you didn't ask for it.
That is so true because, just like you, I learned about it because one of my friends' wives, she is an HR, she's like an HR director, and she told me all the secrets. And I'm like, wow, I've been lowballing myself all of these years. Mm-hmm. But it goes to show you what your worth is in these corporate America spaces. Now, I've been in teams where I was the best IT person on the team, and I was the lowest paid. Correct. And I was the guy who was there the longest too. And I was training folks who was making more than me. So, but that's the whole thing. And this is going to the overall collective of who we are, because one of the things that I think keeps us down in the system is the fact that we don't know our true worth and our true value. And this goes far beyond just monetary and money value. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are inventors. We are spiritual people. We are people who have created civilizations. Correct. And so this is the value that we have. But because we live in the system, because they're trying to tell us that we came from slaves and all we've done is just shoot each other and kill each other and just do all of these crazy things that Black people or people across the world have done, in a negative way. This is what we are indoctrinated with. So the value that we basically substitute with that, because of the fact that we don't know our real value, is capitalism. So we strive to be that rich white man or rich white woman with that big house in Beverly Hills, when we know realistically that is not realistic to us. But we keep striving for that. And the way we strive for it And the way we fight for it is sometimes, but in most cases, we step on each other. Because what do we do when we make a little money? Well, if I can make it, you can make it too. Mm-hmm. And so this is what we do. We try to blame the victims because of the fact that one person or maybe two people made it. You know, Oprah is the ultimate goal. Jay-Z is the ultimate goal. But most of us, if not a lot of us, ain't gonna get to Jay-Z, Oprah status because they were chosen to be in those positions. So, you know, we got to know what our real value is.
Yep, we do. And I think we just don't understand that. And that goes into the system of racism. That very system teaches us you can take what you can get. And don't ask for anything else. Don't ask for anything less. Don't ask for any. In fact, ask for less. Don't ask for anything more. Because it's an honor for you to be a part of the organization when it really is you being a part. It's an honor for them to have you. When you understand your worth and your value, that's when you become a problem. And I'm learning that. I'm learning your value in what you do. And if you see it as an asset, like for instance, our community, everybody wants to be a business owner. I don't advocate everybody being a business owner because some people just don't have it. But while we are inside of these systems, we have to work the system as well so that we can support our businesses. I'm not an advocate for everybody to go out here, get a business. That ain't everybody's calling. But while you're in the place that you're in, help the next person. If you understand something and you can help the next person in your community to be able to understand that it's not that we're neglecting other people because they have 20 years of understanding this system. We're playing catch up. So while we're playing catch up, I need to pull this person over here who's not quite groomed and don't understand the environment. Let me help that person. Because I was that person that wasn't groomed, didn't understand the environment, just in corporate America, losing my mind, just accepting anything. And I had a Black lady pull me to the side and tell me, you can do the job, but you got to clean up your act. You can't come in. I used to go in meetings like Sister E. I didn't go in as Marthel. I went in there making sure that I pissed everybody off in the room. That was my goal. I didn't care. And she said, I need to clean you up because you have more enemies than you have allies. And you're going to need allies one day. And one day I needed an ally and it didn't work for me. And she said, I went to her. I said, I need your help. She groomed me. She taught me everything that I know, how to function in corporate America. Can Black woman to do that.
I think what you just said was so profound because the thing about race is that it's not really about race. Mm-hmm. So like you said, you needed allies and you had more enemies than allies. And in the way race is set up, it's set up so that we devour each other, just like was previously said, right? So what ends up happening is we end up in this competition against one another instead of helping out one another. And the thing which is so profound is we were told, like let's say house Negroes, right? And I try to say this often. It's two types of house Negroes, right? It's the house Negroes that you hear about, like from Samuel L. and Django Unchained. That's the house in this house Negro. You know what I mean? And then there were house Negroes who told you when Massa was leaving so you could go escape.
Yes, ma'am.
It's two types, and I think that we've created these stereotypes in our minds. Like when I think about it, to relate it to the scriptures. Remember, Paul says, "Greet those who are in Caesar's house." Yes. You know what I mean? We need some people in Caesar's house, right? Yes. So we have those who a lot of people may think, like, oh, this person is a sellout. Little do you know, they the spook who sat by the door. They the individuals who are about to set it off, and you have no idea that they're about to set it off. And to your point, what you said before, there are allies, because at the core of it, our foundation, just like what you said, Sister E, it ain't about color. Our foundation is in Christ. So you got some white folks. What's the white guy named John Brown? You got some white folks is out here ready to shoot it and set it off in the name of Jesus. They like, look, this ain't right. This doctrine straight from hell, and I'm going to send it right back to hell from which it came. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important for us to begin to identify where we're weak. One where we're weak individually, collectively. You could start locally, and then also pour into, because like we see the areas that we need helping, pour into those areas practically, but still do things to build yourself up so that you understand how you could lock arms with people that are to your left and to your right. And I think that what you said was so profound, and it just made me think about how oftentimes a different aspect or nuance to this is there's more than one type of house Negro. There's the house Negro that's literally allowing themselves to get raped so that you can escape.
Yep.
Like there's that, and then there's the Samuel L's. So
I love a good John Brown. though. I'm gonna be honest and I'm gonna be quiet. If you got one good John Brown standing with you, I got one. I got one. Everywhere I go, I give me a good John Brown. And when I say they be about it, ready to go, and you be like, hold on, chill out, wait. Hold on. No, we can go do it. And you be like, hold on, time out. We're still in corporate America. Can you calm down? But a good John Brown. And when you meet one, it's because they're genuine and they again see something that because again, the system of racism is not a color, it's a system. And you said something that was so profound, y'all. It's about money. Because you can have black people that buy into the system and railroad you every single time.
Yeah, a friend of mine called John Brown the greatest white man that ever lived. and John Brown was so gangster, he had some of the slaves was like, this dude is, I'm afraid, I'm scared. This dude go get all us killed. I'm scared of him.
I love the fact that Sister Honest brought up the spook who sat by the door, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Yep. I'm like, because like if anybody has not seen the movie or read the book by Sam Green, please do. It will give you an idea. Obviously, there are things in there that say, no, we ain't trying to do none of that. But the concepts behind it and how the main character operated, the same type of mentality that we should have.
And I don't know if it still is, but I watched it on YouTube some years ago, so it could be there for free on YouTube. Yep. But wasn't Chicken George a house, a quote unquote house Negro? Because he was dropped. I mean, a lot of them, what I call, they say they basically drop intel.
Yeah, he was until they did him dirty, and then he decided.
Oh, he ended up getting his whole family out of that. Out of that whole situation. But yeah, you're right. There's I think we do a disservice when we use that term and we don't quantify, because Malcolm started that really in the public sphere anyway. We don't quantify the bad house Negro versus the good house Negro, and not all of them were just all about themselves, what they can get for themselves. Because think about it, the Underground Railroad, you had quote unquote house Negroes, you had white folk, you had a whole bunch of people that made that thing work. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Sister E, I don't know if you're going to bring something up, because I wanted to talk about something just a little different in regard. Okay, so I don't know if any of you read there was a Pew Research that was done last year, and it was called Faith Among Black Americans. And it was basically talking about why Black people leave the church and why they're staying in the church. And one of the questions was basically about how their religion opposes racism. And they apparently they broke it down by denomination, because I know there's a Black Catholic group that was talking about it a couple of months ago, and obviously 77% of Protestant Blacks agree that religion must be important to speaking against racism, and 75 Black Catholics believe that it's important for their religion to speak out or talk about racism, because one of the things that they often say is that the church that they're in, the ministers or the pastors or the priests who are in these congregations don't speak up enough against racism. So this is something that, I just probably wanted to bring up, since we are talking about, racism, and, this is a faith-based type of, channel. So I wanted to
throw that out there.
Yeah, kind of throw that out there.
You want to throw that fire out there. You know what? Though? You're on point, because obviously in the church we've been battling this issue for over a century now or more. And you had the abolitionists, and you had different people who pushed for reform, even though throughout during the civil rights era and whatnot. But then on the flip side, you have Christians who are apathetic, or they like the status and they want to keep things the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw them rear their ugly head during the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, evangelicals came out in full force. They, marching down in Charlottesville and doing all kind of wild and crazy stuff until they culminated on January 6th. Did you see when they raided when the insurrections broke into the Capitol building and got into the Senate floor? They had the audacity to stop and pray to Jesus. Did you guys see that? And I'm thinking to myself, now, what Jesus would approve what you guys are doing?
White Jesus.
Exactly.
White Jesus would approve of that.
Plain and simple.
See, y'all see how Gardas be cutting up. Y'all see?
But last year and the year before, some friends of ours, we've done recordings, and then some other apologists have pushed back against. I'm gonna say his name, Johnny Mac. I ain't gonna say his whole name. I'm just gonna call him Johnny Mac. Him and some of his ilk. He did a horrible so-called sermon. That this was supposed to be a sermon. He did a horrible sermon on Black lives, on protesters and Black people in general. He called us rebellious and said we need to better. Basically, I'm just paraphrasing. We need to, train our children better. We won't have to worry about the police cracking our heads and all this other crazy. I mean, just crazy stuff, man. But there are people on that side that think like that, and they're being taught by pastors like that who reinforce those kind of teachings. And then the worst part of it is you have police officers who sit in those congregations and listen to stuff like that from their leaders, which exasperate the whole problem with the relationship between the Black community and police, law enforcement. And so I said all that to say racism is definitely prevalent and even in the church institution. It still is. Of course, not every white person or every evangelical or every Christian is racist, but not enough of them are speaking up against it. And if you're apathetic towards it, it's one thing being ignorant. But if you know it exists and you're apathetic, I got a problem with you, because the Bible teaches us about sin and not, if we know our brother is walking in sin and living in sin and doing sin, and racism is sin. And your brother is operating and moving in sin, and you don't have nothing to say to him, and you just like, oh, it don't affect me. I have a problem with you. You call yourself my brother, in other words, if I knew, I got some white friends, and let's say, and I do, and some of them are Christians, and I know a Black brother that was, coming at them foul because they're white. And I know that's not, and I know they're cool people. That's not their character. I'm gonna have a conversation with him. Say, hey man, you ain't right, man. But a lot of them don't do that. That's apathy. And Dr. King said, the moderate is worse than the Klan, because they just don't do nothing.
I think biblically speaking, in addition to what you said, and biblically speaking, the Bible talks about how the love of many will wax cold. So it's not just apathy from a therapeutic perspective. I think a lot of times when we think of hatred, we see hatred as the opposite of love, but hatred isn't the opposite of love. Apathy is. Apathy is. We think of hatred. Hatred makes you think, because it's so visceral, you can think that a person doesn't care, but to be completely numb is worse than feeling a visceral anger or disdain for it. To feel nothing is worse. And I think that when one of the things that I often ask people is, what do you think the impact, and I'm not asking this panel, but I want us to think about it. And even those who are viewing this panel, what do you think the impact of racism has been, the psychological and spiritual impact of racism has been on the majority white culture? If it has caused us this amount of trauma, I mean, on an epigenetic level, that means it's literally in our DNA. What do you think has gone into the DNA of the dominant culture? No wonder you don't want to talk about it. No, you're like, it petrifies you. It is the reason why I can't look at this. That's why they're creating these anti-CRT laws, because they don't want their children to look at what they've done. And their children, nobody wants to take race out of it. Take race. Think about your own sin, your own personal. I don't care what it is. Anybody who ever seen me, I got a crazy testimony, right? I would not want my child to find out my testimony from any lips but my own. I just wouldn't. And that's my sin. Add hundreds of years to that. Man, oh man. That's going to take a lot of duct tape to hold that together. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, don't you see?
That's an unrepentant mindset.
Right.
Repent, we're not going to change. We're just going to play like
hardening of the hearts, the callousness of one's mind, so that you cannot see that the imago Dei is in an individual. You can't see that they too bear the image of God. And this is the worst part. You can't even see how you bear the image of God. Because if I can't see whether you black or you white, if I can't see you as my brother, then I have forgotten my own humanity. The moment, this is the finesse of hell. The moment I deny your humanity, I lose my own.
Whoa.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Man.
The moment I deny your humanity, I lose my own. That is an upfront to the imago Dei. God is not pleased with that. And I don't care whether it's who or what. And I ain't saying I got to agree with your decisions. I ain't saying I got to agree with your religion. I ain't saying I got to agree with any aspect of you are, but you are created in the image of God. And in fact, me remembering that you are created in the image of God is the very thing that gives me permission to call you higher. That makes sense?
Oh God.
Yeah, I'll let somebody else speak, but I'm gonna say this real quick. I forced myself to watch a quote unquote anti-woke sermon. These people are preaching this stuff from the pulpit. Anti-woke, and he's just going off on you woke, this people crazy, woke. You gotta wake up, and then they go into their whole Trumpism stuff, but
well, speaking from a Black Catholic perspective, when people come to me and say, well, why do you have to talk about the Black Catholic and the Black Catholic Church? And you be surprised how many Black Catholics ask me that same question. And I say, when you get rid of racism, matter of fact, let's get a racism in the Catholic Church first, and then I'll stop calling myself Black Catholic. Other than that, until we can eradicate racism in the Catholic Church alone, then I'll stop calling myself Black Catholic. But for now, I'm a Black Catholic.
Do they speak to you in King James? Brother, where goeth thou? Why dost thou bring that up?
You don't want me to say my real response. You know, I'm trying to be respectful here.
I hate when people say we all bleed red. I'd be
Oh,
like,
brother. Yeah.
I can't. It's like you don't you just. I mean, y'all have to pray for me. Evangelicalism gets under my skin because found out that some of these evangelical schools, private schools, were created after they started integrating black students into the white school systems.
Talk about that. Jerry Falwell Sr. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yes.
There you go.
Was it something Brown University or something? What is it called?
It's Liberty University.
Liberty.
Liberty University for Jerry Falwell Sr. And a lot of times we don't understand that the modern day conservative movement was actually started not because people wanted to hold on to Christian virtue, but because white people who were culturally Christian wanted to hold on to their privilege. And so in order to, they tied it literally to desegregation. They literally supported a witch in the White House. And I'm not saying that hyperbolically. Nancy Reagan, everybody knows she was into sorcery. She had a whole psychic and all this other stuff come in and tie her. They tied themselves to these individuals rather than give up their privilege.
Correct.
And they started talking about, hey, what's the one issue? Because at first they tried to use a number of other issues to get people involved and hype about. And then they said, we can't. What's the issue? We need to get them behind something. And they said, abortion.
Yep.
Abortion.
And
we gonna use abortion.
And they use it to this day.
And it's a sin and a shame, sister. You are right. Because how dare you say? I remember I said, maybe, just maybe, the same Imago Dei denying demon that says to people that a group of people with a skin color are not human is the same demon that's behind people saying a child in the womb is not a child. Maybe it's the same. It sounds like the same demon to me. It's a human is a human from the womb to the tomb. Last time I checked, right?
Yes, I would be giving you a high five right now.
I got you.
Same devil. Yeah.
Same devil.
Same devil that can go to church on Sunday morning and hang a man on Sunday afternoon. Same devil.
Right.
Yep.
But like me being Catholic, yes, we are very anti-abortion. But the thing is that we extend it even further. Why don't we care more about the children who are born and who are in these situations, who are, getting miseducated and abused in these school systems, and it's so funny, me living in Chicago, we only care about children when they get shot, and that's terrible, But the thing about it is that where are you guys at when we have a high dropout rate amongst our people? We got children who can't even pass basic minimum skills tests, and they're being educated in our public schools where we're paying taxes. And for them to go to some of these schools, that the buildings actually should be condemned. And then we're not even talking about not just the high rate of one parent single household. We got more of our children going into the foster care system, which is actually abusing them even more.
Correct.
And these children, and if you look at the statistics, most of these children, like who are doing these carjackings in Chicago, they are from the foster care system.
Man.
So this is the problem that we have. We don't extend the sympathy. We don't extend the concern about children when they come outside of the womb. We always talk about abortion, which I think is used as a political tool and not as a moral issue to say we need to save the children. No, why don't you first focus on saving the children that are here right now?
Right now.
Correct.
I think the school system, but I think the school system is more complex than what we, there's a lot of factors into it. When you get into, tax base, in poor communities, the tax base is going to be low, and I'm not saying that's an excuse for poor looking schools, but that's how they set them up. Okay, you guys is tax based in this community based on property taxes and all this jazz, and that's how much is going allocated in your community versus the white suburb. They got bigger homes, they got a higher tax base, and their schools are nicer. But the government at some point should even that out because we all pay taxes. We pay federal taxes, we pay state taxes, we pay local taxes, we pay taxes on food, gas, and everything else you can think of. So there should be an evening out. But I think it's more complex than, I think that we probably need some educators. I don't know what your profession is, Gordis, but probably need some educators to speak on that.
Oh yeah, I don't work as a teacher, but I do work in the public school system. And
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have enough black teachers. Matter of fact, when you look at the statistics, in majority of these black schools, who are the teachers? What are their racial and sexual makeup? They're white women. Mm-hmm. White women are the ones who are teaching our black children. So
because there's not enough black teachers.
Well, and I would say this because there have been times where black males have been trying to get teaching positions and they either don't get it or just get totally denied. So, and I've heard this story from a lot of black males who have been trying to get jobs in CPS and other school districts around this area, and many of them said that they won't hire them.
That's interesting you say that because when I first graduated from high school, I was really good at math, algebra and all that stuff. And I had a desire to teach grade school math, and then I was always athletic, play sports. So I could do gym, I could teach math. When they told me, when I went to the Board of Education to fill out application, they said, oh yeah, that's fine. Now what degrees do you have? And when they degrees, I'm just talking about teaching basic math in grade school. Oh, well, you got to go get this degree. And I'm like, well, who's going to pay for it? You know what I said? Literally, who's going to pay for that?
Yep.
I said, if you pay for it, I'll go. Like, no, you got to say, well, shoot, man, y'all going to pay me how much?
Yeah.
Hour. And you want me to go get a degree to teach grade school math, man? I already know grade school math. What do I need a degree for that for?
Exactly. and studies have shown that black children who sit in front of black male teachers majority of their school years have become successful because of the fact that, for one, there's a self-confidence that black men have, standing in front of that classroom. And not to say that black women don't do the same thing, but the studies have shown that black men do have, who kind of teach these children, because I always feel like I grew up in a 2-parent household. So it was like my mother nurtured me, but my father was the one that gave me confidence. And so he was the one that energized me, to be this confident black male, in society, because obviously, with, there's a dual role when you're talking about, masculinity and feminine, and the feminine energy, because of the fact that, this is why we have 2 parents. This is why God created us to have 2 people raising a child. If it takes 2 people to have a child, then it's going to take 2 people to raise a child.
That balance. What's crazy?
They're not trying to hear that. They're not trying to hear no man and woman. No, they're trying to hear they and them and zay and zer and all this other stuff. Raising kids. Can I share my screen for a second again, Sister E?
Yeah. Just tell me what you need to share. You don't have to ask.
All right.
He's not a him. He's not a him.
You know what?
So this is something. This is something that I wanted to talk about really quick. All right. So this is something that how isms work. Now I feel like this is how isms work, no matter what the ism is in most cases, right? But let's just talk about for a second racism. Right. So you have the personal aspect. So in society, that's what we do individually. Right. So that's your choices that you make, whether you're a bigot, it looks like the actions, like, am I going to give this person a job or am I going to harm this person? Even it should say interactions with individuals, your position, your experiences. It can look like bias based on skin color. Because, even amongst ourselves, we have this internalized racism. So we say, we we say stuff like you black, and we make black a pejorative, or we make light skin a benefit. And sometimes we say black like it's strong, or you have like a light skin guy and a dark skin guy, and we're like, I'm picking the dark skin guy to win the fight. You know how we do, right? So it could look at you saying that somebody is irresponsible, or even us being irresponsible to people of different ilks, or even those who look like us, right? And it's all about creating this hierarchy in humanity. Then there's the structural aspect, right? And the structural aspect consists of systems. So you have your entertainment aspect, which includes the arts and sports. Now I'm gonna focus on that in just a second. You have legal, educational, financial, housing, and even religious and cultural. Now religious, I was reading the comments, right? If you see me and I'm quiet, I'm reading the comments. People started talking about how the structure of certain religious aspects that claim Christianity were a part of all of this, right? But finally is the thing that we as believers, we really have to look at, and that's the spiritual, right? Because all of this at its core is connected to a spiritual force. Remember and I know because I'm talking to Hebrews, y'all really learned it in school in the Old Testament, right? So there are spiritual forces and wickedness and high places, right? And remember in Daniel, when he was fasting, right? And on the 21st day is when Daniel came to him. And remember what he said to him? I think it's in Daniel 9 or Daniel 10. He said, the moment you begin praying, we were on our way. Remember he said that? He said, but we got caught up in a 21-day scuffle with the prince of the air of Persia. You like, hold up. What you talking about? A prince of that? So wait a minute. Y'all just go. I'm not going to skip over that. So y'all was fighting. So wait, it's principalities over each land?
Correct.
Each land has principalities. So I say that to say the principalities are the aspect that we have to war in.
Yes.
We as believers are the only people who God has put as his viceroys to war and call down heaven in these areas. The world attacks it oftentimes from a personal, they structural. Oftentimes, unfortunately, believers, we talk about personal and spiritual, but we don't talk about the structures that these spiritual systems created. Even though we just talked about racism, even though we just talked about stuff like abortion. Okay, so where does racism and abortion meet the spiritual structure? I got 2 words: Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, Negro Project. You could choose any of those 2 words, put them together and do whatever, right? So we are the ones who have to attack this on every level. Part of the reason why we get got is because we only fight 2 levels, and it ends up us fighting each other. Folks, we need to be fasting and praying. You cannot out argue a demon or a stronghold. You can't out logic a demon. I don't care how great your argument is. I see people in the comment section and they're laying out some great things, and I'm like, oh, you speaking to a stronghold. I'm not arguing with that. I'm going to pray about that when I hang up. I'm going to turn the plate down next week. But in reality, the reason why it don't work is, if I'm gonna be honest, a lot of times I don't want to turn my plate down. I want what I want. I want to sound right, be theologically sound, and not have to give up nothing. Man. If I'm gonna be honest, that's what happens. So we need to really be very wise in how we approach this. We need to be fasting and praying. You want to see hell get pissed? Start coming together on that.
Man.
In addition to a panel, pick a day when we say we gonna fast today, y'all. We fasting today, and then we gonna end it. Hey, I'm trying to tell you, it's gonna look like hell trying to break out and heaven trying to come down.
You know what? You just said a mouthful, because you just made me think about 2 Chronicles 7:14, when it says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. You made me go straight to that when you said that.
Yeah, that was Gabriel, and Gabriel told Daniel he had to call Michael, the warrior, come down, and Michael, his angels and warrior angels came down. And can you imagine spirit beings fighting? I couldn't even imagine what that looks like.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm with honestly. We fighting a system, a demonic system. And I say it's a demonic system that it goes past the people. It's a principality that's been put in place that has been used as a tool to oppress the people. And it's more of a spiritual fight. It's a war in the spiritual realm. People don't
Yes.
like to talk about that. We're so educated and we're so well versed in the Bibles. We're so well versed in the history. And honestly said a good thing. She said, now it's time to turn them plates over.
Yeah, but we also have to understand too that system has indoctrinated us, and
Yep.
we're still kind of scrubbing. We're still kind of scrubbing that dirt away. So we also have to realize that as well. As much as and everybody in this panel has articulated well this system, but understand this: we have all been indoctrinated in this system as well. So we have to also be careful with that.
I have a couple of short examples of systematic racism or system which CRT addresses. And I'll keep them short. If I can share the first video, it's a real short one.
Okay. Where's the link?
Oops.
Let's see. And chime in whenever you're ready, Slick. You've been quiet. I know we all talking.
I ain't gonna lie, so I ain't gonna lie. I've been up since 3:30 this morning, and I worked hard today. But sometimes you got to know when to be quiet. Y'all on fire, so I'm listening. So sometimes you got to know when to be quiet. So I'm just listening. I
just want to make sure you got a chance, because let me see. You got the video yet?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, let me get my tea while you're doing it. One second.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting discussion when you think about how racism has affected all factors of our lives. When we're talking about and all the institutions, when we're talking about the political, religious, educational, it's entertainment. It's like everywhere, and it's and in some places it's hidden. And sometimes the ones we can't see is the ones that do us the most damage. We often think that the racist is the redneck white man with the swastika on tattooed on his arm, calling himself a skinhead. And he's a racist, yes, but that racist could be next door to you, smiling in your face, saying, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Jay? How you doing, honestly? I'm your friend. Let me help you out there." That can also be the racist as well. So, we have to be careful. Sometimes, we often have this misconception. And me, myself, listen, for me, when you're talking about racism, Joe Biden, just like you said, honestly, is as racist as Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He just says it in a different way. And that's
he says it nicely.
Yeah, he says it in a nice way.
He does.
My screen is sharing, by the way, Sister E, if you see that. You can let me know when it's up.
It's up.
Okay. Let me know if y'all can hear this.
Last year, Indianapolis native Carlette Duffy set out to buy her grandmother's house. Her plan? Refinance her own home to purchase the property.
I did the application process. When they asked, for, do you want to declare, race and gender, nationality? I did all of that. Said, yeah, no problem.
Duffy expected her home, which she bought for $100,000 3 years earlier, to appraise for around $185,000.
I was shocked that it came back at 125. And so I challenged it.
But the appraiser stood by his decision, and the lender didn't budge. So Duffy moved on, going through the process again, this time with Freedom Mortgage. The value placed on her home was even more staggering.
It's $110,000, $15,000 less than the first one, which is less than 3 months earlier.
Duffy again challenged the appraisal to no avail. Duffy applied again through a new lender. This time, she didn't disclose her race or gender in the application process, only communicated with the appraiser via email, and that wasn't all.
I took all of these down so that they wouldn't be seeing my lovely ladies. I took them down. Right before we got to the appraisal portion, I met with two of my girlfriends. Both are married to white men, and I was like, okay, I need to borrow one of y'all husbands.
When the third appraiser came, Duffy was gone. Her friend's husband posed as her brother.
So I was a bit skeptical at first until we saw the results.
The result? Duffy's home was appraised for $259,000, more than double that of her previous two appraisals.
I screamed with joy. I was so elated. And then it quickly dissipated. And then I just cried. Because this is an actual, there it is. And that I'm the thing that's devaluing my house.
The real problem is how we devalue people.
Andre Perry, a senior fellow at Brookings, studies devaluation in Black neighborhoods. Data shows Duffy's experience is not isolated.
It's almost as if when people see a Black neighborhood, they see twice as much crime than there actually is. They see worse education than there actually is, and they value the home in that respect.
On average, homes in neighborhoods where the population is 50% Black are valued at roughly half the price of homes in neighborhoods with no Black residents in U.S. metro areas. Even when controlling for crime, access to schools, and other factors, homes in Black neighborhoods are underpriced by 23%. That's about $48,000 per home, totaling more than $156 billion in cumulative lost equity.
We have several concerns about the appraisal industry.
Amy Nelson is the executive director of the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana.
If a neighborhood has been systematically discriminated against because of the race of that neighborhood, decade upon decade, comps then are going to be skewed and they're going to have bias written into them.
This month, Duffy and the Fair Housing Center of Indiana filed a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, alleging race-based discrimination in both her appraisal and lending process.
You are taking away my family's ability to create generational wealth, which is so much more than just words.
NBC received statements from the first two lenders. Both pointed to their use of independent appraisers according to industry standards. Citywide Home Loans denied any discrimination and said they are actively participating in the HUD investigation. Freedom Mortgage said they used an automated valuation model after receiving the complaint and stood by the appraised value. None of the appraisers named in the complaint responded to NBC's request for comment. As for Duffy, she used the money from the third and final appraisal to fulfill that dream of buying her grandmother's home.
That's the house that my grandfather built. I hope to see my grandbaby raised in that house. And then for her to be able to then build on the legacy of her family.
Fair use.
Wow. That's all I gotta say.
So if anybody got any comments on what we just watched,
I want to add on to that because this is how cold the system is. All right. So yes, that happens in that place. It happens in Chicago as well. But this is the dynamic that happens, and this is an example that happened a couple of years ago. So here, in the area, Cook County is the county that Chicago resides in. And so what happened was there was a tax assessor that was his name was Joe Barrios. And what he was doing was he was assessing the properties of people in Black neighborhoods higher than they were on the market. So a house that technically is like about maybe $120,000, he was assessing it for like almost $300,000 on tax. So that's the taxes you have to pay on a house that is technically worth 120, but they assessed it at 300,000. And so he got caught in that, and they asked him So what's your formula of assessing these taxes? And he couldn't explain it. But we can explain it. You're a racist. And you basically, what you're doing is you're just basically pushing forward another housing tactic, gentrification, because this is what they do. They overtax these people so they can get them out of their houses and basically foreclose on their houses because of the fact that they don't pay their taxes. Even people whose houses have been paid for, if you don't pay the taxes on it, they can seize that property in a minute. Yes. And so this is one of the taxes that they use. So yeah, the redlining still going on, but also this tax gentrification, racist policies is also going on as well.
And I just wanted, I thank you so much for pointing that out, because I just wanted to also say again, I'm a big individual that's very much big on multiple things can be true. Okay, so remember, I know we're in the stage of society when it's like politically incorrect to like call out your own, but as followers of Christ, we gonna call it, say the truth is the truth and let every man be a lie. Remember that Chris Rock, for those who, I don't know what your comedy or your holiness is like, but Chris Rock had this comedy special when I think it was in 96. I'm dating myself, and maybe even when I started walking with the Lord, but in 96, he said, black people also hate other black people too. And he said, we hate N-words too. Remember, he said, hey, we hate N-words. And he said, we could be at the, he said, because it's not the media that's practically coming at us, it's the N-words. And black people, we know what we're talking about. Like when you hear that, you like, man, please don't bleep this up. You understand what I'm saying? It's a group of people whose mind, for whatever reason, it could be the result of systemic racism. It could be the individual sin. I'm out for me. I'm going to do me. Those things attack and affect our community and the quote unquote value of our homes, right? And they actually discourage us. So we got to fight them, and we got to fight the very system.
Tariq Nasheed called them hood rats.
Right. Like, remember, like my friends have a lot of different names, but it's the fungus among us, right? And I think that we have to definitely identify both, because everything black, I've been to 3 different countries in Africa. I plan on going back soon, and everything African, everything that's people of color, it ain't sweet. No. Just like everything that's Caucasian ain't bad. However, this system has levels to it, and we have to know to fight on every level, because just like Sister E said earlier, and multiple people on the panel said earlier, it's at the core of it, we fight in principalities. It's not really about skin doctrine. It's really about fighting evil and standing with truth. I'm getting ready to bow out. It's almost midnight where I am, and I just want to, I'm at my mom's house. I want to bid her good night. But thank you so much for having me on this. I look forward to coming back, folks. I'll put my information.
You dropped some bombs. I will definitely say that.
I'm in great company. Y'all was I was learning. A part of me was like, remember that part. I'm literally gonna send that video. What's the name of that video that you just shared?
Your video, Jay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The title.
Hold on. Honestly, make sure you give them your YouTube channel and everything, so people.
I am.
Gotcha.
The title is Black Indianapolis Owners Home Value Doubles After Concealing Race. I mean, that's a long title.
Right. But I'll look up Black Indianapolis Homeowners Doubles After Concealing Race, and then it'll come up. But I am honestly speaking on everything. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please hit me up on Instagram. Please hit me up on Facebook. Grace and peace, everybody. I just pray. Thank you so much, Sister E. I'm praying for all of us, and let's build. All right.
You coming back? No worries, sis. I'm finna get real worse with you. So thank you.
All right. God bless you guys.
God bless.
God bless you too.
What's going on, Dante? You said you wanted to hop up here. You was telling me you wanted to say something about I think the housing or the mortgage system. Dante, I can hear you.
Yeah. Shalom to everybody on the panel. My throat's a little bit sore right now, but often one thing that I've talked about on my other channel, for those of you who follow my financial channel, was the real estate purchase that I made in November of the 36 acres. And one thing we have to remember is that when it comes to real estate, the agents, they work for us. Not necessarily applicable to her situation. I'm not sure she was refinancing or trying to sell. I think I missed that part. Did anybody hear that part? Was she trying to refinance or sell?
She was refi.
Okay, she was refinancing. All right. So when it comes to selling, yeah, because they won't apply refinancing. But when it comes to selling, you guys got to remember they work for you. And I learned this from one of my white neighbors in Pahrump. He is a retired real estate agent, and across the street is a 40-acre farm, and the guy listed it for $500,000. And I was just like, why would he list it for $500,000? He's like, because that's what he wanted to list it for. So when I saw that, I relisted mine for $350,000. I bought it for $187 in November. Let me mute that. $187 in November. So when I called my agent, I said, what's the going rate for the property? He said, it's up to $320 now. I got mine listed at $320. I said, well, list mine at $350. And he said, so you want to list it above market value? Yes, listed above market value. And that's exactly what he did. So I got the idea from the guy with the farm. And my point is, we have to keep in mind that when it comes to real estate, a lot of times not in refinancing situation, but we are in charge. They work for us. We don't work for them. So don't undervalue yourself. Get 100% of your money if you're going to sell it.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I'm actually looking to buy a house, but I'm waiting because the market is kind of questionable. And I try to go in the door with money. I'm not going in with just 10 down. I want to almost have more than almost half. I'm walking in the door. That's why I said I'm waiting just a little bit to watch, and I'm getting ready to do some stuff to stack some money because I don't want to walk into debt. Debt is something, and that's something we can have a deeper conversation about the debt and how debt is impacting our community. That's another system that's tied to racism. If you keep putting them in debt, they're not going to be able to create, keyword, generational wealth. And that's something that we had before immigration. When we were segregated, we had generational wealth because we had wealth within our community. Our dollar stayed in our community. We were a threat because our dollar circulated. And as our dollar circulated, our communities grew, and they needed our money to go outside our communities because they saw the power in our dollar.
Well, Sister E, let's also, kind of discuss that because, yeah, you're right. We had generational wealth, but, it's not the wealth that we kind of think of, like, say, white wealth, because of the fact that when we look at our old communities that we used to have, the wealth came within the relationships and the families.
Correct.
This is where the wealth came in because, if you look at, places like Black Wall Street, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and other places like Rosewood, I mean, they were well-off people, but they weren't like rich and wealthy, like, like the Rockefellers or anything like that. So the wealth that they had was something different, if you ask me. It was far beyond just monetary because, just like you said, the reason why those dollars circulated because of the fact that they related to each other. And I think this is the most important. Somebody told me this. They say the wealthiest man is the person who can live with the least. And it was important to me to hear that because of the fact that when you think about it, how much unnecessary consumption we do as a people, it's like we consume, we buy stuff that we really don't need, or we buy it and we use it for a couple of months, and then next thing you know, we're not using it anymore. So this is part of, like I said earlier, us trying to scrub ourselves from the system of racism, because of the fact that one of the negatives that it has made us do is it has made us consumers, and it has made us consumers of unnecessary items, things that depreciate. We're not even buying things now that even appreciate anymore. So this is like I said, I always look at when we had those old communities, it's always relationship. I can go, if I go into a city, and I know certain people there, they'll take care of me because of the fact that they'll allow me to stay in their house. They may feed me, just like if a friend or a family member comes into my city, it's like he or she has the option to stay over where I'm at, and they don't have to worry about paying for a hotel room. That right there is wealth, because of the fact that it didn't take me a lot of money to, go travel somewhere and lodge somewhere, because of the fact that I have relationships with different people.
I think too, one of the things that we, I used to be guilty of this. I still,
Brother Zadok hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, with what he. I'm sorry,
I was
Brother
gonna
J
say,
Mac. I just want to acknowledge what Zadok said. He said segregation left us no choice but to spend our own money in our own communities and to spend money with our own. So the dollar circulated more in the Black community. But in my opinion, what civil rights and desegregation did, it took our money out of our communities, put it into everybody else's community, and then they take that money and they put it back into their own communities. They don't come back and put the money in our communities, but we are adamant about putting money in their community. So I just want to shout out what Zadok said about segregation, leaving us no choice but to build generational wealth back then, because they didn't let us spend our money with them.
I really wish, I'm gonna be honest, y'all, and I hate to say it like this, but I'm gonna say it. I almost wish that we can go back into that, to where we had our, again, I grew up in a family. My grandmother was one of those that owned a rooming house that was a / hotel room. She knew the lady who owned the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King got murdered in Memphis, Tennessee. They all were, I think, yes, they knew her. And they all had their own system of wealth. When people came into town, guess what? Black people didn't go and look for a Hilton. They used what is it, the Green Book? Is it the Green Book or the Blue Book?
Yeah, they used the Green Book.
The Green Book to find places to go so that they can stay.
They didn't have no choice. Yeah,
we need an internet Green Book to say, if I want to give, I want to support. I want to support my own community, but we got to also teach our community how to maintain businesses. When you get a business, and you make your first $100,000, it doesn't need to go towards a brand new car. It needs to go towards reinvesting into your business to make it grow. Right. That's what they did back then. They didn't go buy the brand new Cadillac. They took the money and said, "Okay, I bought this property. I'm going to go buy the other property down the street."
Right. Well, right. I agree with you. And there were positive aspects of segregation, as you guys are speaking of, and ladies are speaking of. But I think in our generation, we tend to look back at that generation and those generations in a vacuum, so to speak. We don't realize that although there were some good businesses and there were some folk who were profitable, there was extreme poverty in Black communities, and especially in the South. And they were shut out of the job market, because of discrimination, the educational system, and whole nine. And then they didn't even have the power to vote people in office who would make differences in those areas that of concern in the educational system and the job market. So I'm saying all that to say civil rights leaders were fighting and battling issues that are a lot deeper than what we understand, or many of us don't understand today. I mean, just the board of what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the Thurgood Marshall who fought back in the 50s to
Brown versus Board of Education.
Yeah, Brown versus Board of Education. That was the first big victory, and because this Black schools they had horrible schools, they had raggedy textbooks, bad facilities, 9 yards, and then they talking about separate but equal. It wasn't equal. Now, if it was equal, that would have been different, but it wasn't equal, and so I think that we have to consider And I'm saying this because I'm sticking up for Dr. King now. It was bad. It wasn't all rosy like we think it was. That and now again, I'm not saying that we did not lose the tight knit communities that we had, because then once segregation started to quote unquote collapse, people start fleeing the inner cities and fleeing the black communities and going out to the suburbs and whatever. That did happen. I think that if they could have educated our people to say, hey, only thing we're fighting for is equal access. We're not fighting to go live next door to them. We're not fighting to, tear down our communities. We're not, we're just having so we can have equal access like under the law, like we're supposed to have. If people were better educated, I think it would have went over well. But as many things in a fallen society and in a fallen nature and fallen in a sinful world.
Yeah.
And that was a good comment that you put up there, what Brew Queen Israel said, because
right,
this is what I'm talking about. Whereas even if we don't have a lot of money, these relationships could make us wealthy in another way. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but because of the fact that, like I said, I came from a 2-parent household, which is rare, from where I'm at. Everybody looked at my dad as the dad because of the fact that most of my friends didn't have their dads around. So they looked at my dad as, Mr. Watts, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? So this is the type of community that we have to get back to, and this is the type of community. So if my car breaks down, I don't have to go to the dealership and pay an arm and a leg. I got, we always talk about the jack leg mechanic, but sometimes that jack leg mechanic know what he doing.
Yep.
And you ain't gonna be spinning the arm and the leg trying to get something fixed when sometimes the dealership will tell you, well, you need a whole new engine, whereas the mechanic, you just need a thermostat, $15, and you give them 20 on the side just to put it in. And your car is working fine. So,
brother Gardis, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on the mechanic. That's literally the one area where I draw the line is the mechanic. I have found I would rather pay the premium to get it done. This just recently, a friend of mine, he has a Jaguar, and he tried that with the mechanic down the street, and he can't drive it now, and he still has to now go get it done at the dealership. But literally, that is the only place I disagree with what you're saying is when it comes to cars and mechanics. Take it to the shop, get the warranty on it, and make sure it get done right the first time. Otherwise, you're going to pay the guy down the street, and when it mess up and you take it to the shop, you're going to end up paying them too anyway.
Yeah.
Other than that, I agree.
For Jack, like the problem is that none of us could afford Jaguars.
No.
My first car was a used Chevy Cavalier. So,
I think to your point, if you find a good local mechanic in your neighborhood, if you find a good one who's dependable and reliable,
he actually got a junker for $1,000, a nice one, an XF, and then refixed it up himself. And
I'm taking my truck to the dealership. I'm sorry.
But yeah, but I got a I got a 2011 Jetta, and a family member who had it that I bought it from pretty much damaged the engine, and I bought it a few years ago, and I went to the dealer, and the dealer said, "Oh man, that engine's gone." And they said, "Well, we can get you another one. It'll be X amount of dollars, and it probably have low miles." I was like, "Let's do it," because the car's paid for. So basically, they put an engine in there with 50,000 miles. I'm gonna get another at least 5 years out of a 2011 Jetta.
Right. Man, Volkswagen, Team Volkswagen. I got one.
Hey, can I bring something up that it's not happy, it's not popular, but it's part of the reality of what we were talking about. Okay, we said if we can go back to segregation, we had our own communities and so forth, but the dollar spent, we've overlooked the 800-pound elephant in the room. Why do we not have those towns anymore? Any guesses?
Would you say, why do we not have those what?
Those
That's a
towns like
good question.
Black Wall Street.
Oh,
Man.
you know what? I listened to Dr. Claude Anderson.
Uh-huh.
So I'll let you present that.
Sure. I said the reason
Dr.
why
Claude Anderson feels like
that's some kind of delay going on.
Yeah, Dante.
Well, I'm not even. Go ahead. I want to.
Okay.
No, I was going to say the reason why we don't have those towns anymore is because we couldn't defend them. It's like, because you want to build that. It's like, yeah, we can have this dollar circulating. How did Black Wall Street get destroyed? Because the surrounding areas where our towns was filled with people who had access to things that we did not, and they were able to come in and simply destroy the place. So that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room when we talk about doing things like that, at least wise here in this place. We have to think, we can build these, I say we can build these wealth again, but we have to do it in a different way that's more fitting for the 21st century as opposed to the 19th. So that's basically, I just wanted to, just to put that out there.
And I agree with Errol Spike because I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, and 1894, even before Black Wall Street, Wilmington was an all-black town with an all-black government, and they came in and overthrew Wilmington. And Ratway, well, I do like marina work, so Ratway down close to the river, because what they did was they drove all the black people down to the river where they couldn't get away, and hung and burnt their piers down. And one day when we was working, we was digging with an excavator, and we found a femur bone. And the police came, and they wanted to see, was it one of the legs from that massacre. And you can look it up. Like I said, it's before Black Wall Street. But one thing I want to speak to is the critical race theory, because that's the critical race theory topic. I just got a little bit of hope that there's a lot of intelligent people in this chat. So maybe it might turn for something good, and it might force us to start teaching our own kids a little bit more about history. And we flip it on its head. They might think it might be something that's gonna hurt us, but I think we should turn it for good, because what it's gonna do is gonna make people that probably wouldn't never even think about this topic teach their kids. So hopefully it'll switch around and work for something good, because a lot of times when they try to do something for evil, God will make it work out for something that's good. So it might help.
And let's not forget too, with the Tulsa Black Wall Street, they actually rebuilt it after that. But then what ends up happening is the quote unquote urban renewal comes in, and now a lot of those businesses that were built after that massacre had to move out. So generally what they did was they didn't burn them and smoke them and bomb them out the second time. They just basically financed them out the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One was like I said, one was more of the sledgehammer, and the second one was a scalpel.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Rosewood and many other examples of that. Yeah. So yeah, I got another example of a current example of what CRT is all about. If I can share that, yeah.
Go ahead.
Pull that one up too. Let's see. Right one here. Sorry, give me a second. Okay. Doctor.
Where
I'm gonna go ahead and jump on.
All right, Dante. Thanks for
Off,
joining.
y'all. Good night. Thanks for having me on real quick.
All right, Dante.
Okay, should be getting it.
Have a good night, brother.
Shalom, bro.
Yeah, that was a really bad delay.
Got it.
A black doctor has filed a lawsuit against Chase Bank for racial discrimination for refusing to deposit her check
Fair use
or open a new account for her. Dr. Malika Mitchell Stewart wanted to deposit a $16,000 check from her employer associates at the bank, and they began to question her age, her occupation, and the check's validity, ultimately denying her service. She joins us right now, Dr. Malika Mitchell Stewart, as well as her attorney, Justin Moore. Glad to have both of you here. So, okay. So, Malika, what city was this in?
This was in Sugarland, Texas.
Sugarland, Texas, suburb of Houston.
Yes.
So you go to the bank, and how long ago was this?
A couple weeks.
Okay. So you go to the bank, you got a check, and you walk in, you got an ID, okay? On your ID, take it, you got a Texas driver's license? Are you from Texas?
Yes, born and raised, Houston, Texas.
Cool. So you got a Texas driver's license, and which has your date of birth on it, which has all of your information. You go to the counter, and what happens?
So what happened was I signed up to be seated with a specialist who can help me open an account. They call my name back. I go down and sit with her at her desk. I tell her that I want to deposit this check into a new bank account with you all. And she takes my check, and then she looks at me and then starts looking at the check and just starts to ask me questions like, what do I do for a living? What company do you work for? Asking my age and all these different questions, and then proceeds to say that this is probably a fake check, and she wants to go talk to someone else to get, I guess, further.
Wait, she says this is probably a fake check. How did she arrive at that?
I don't know. And that's why I was asking all the questions. And that's when she went to go get someone who I assumed was the bank manager to come talk to me as well. But actually was just a lead teller that also came and talked to me. And they just said that it looks like a fraudulent check, and we're not going to let you open a bank account, and we're not going to let you deposit this check.
Okay. Now, first of all, were both of these folks white? What were they?
So one was white and one was Indian.
Okay. Now, first of all, last time I even looked at a physical check, been a long time. I don't even write checks anymore. But checks have routing numbers on them. Check, you had the name of the company. If they actually questioned the check, they could have actually called the company and says, hi, I'm so-and-so. Dr. Stewart says she works with you. We just want to verify employment. They could have actually done that. But they didn't do any of that.
They did none of that. They just said, I feel uncomfortable, and we're not going any further.
All right. Did the bank manager ever come over?
No, she wasn't even there that day.
Okay. Was there an assistant bank manager?
No, I was under the assumption that she was the bank manager.
Okay. So, all right. So so when did they start asking you all these other questions, your age and other things like that?
So during the process, when I was trying to explain myself and just tell them like, hey, this is my check. I work at this new clinic that's opened in Houston now. This is my sign-on bonus. I can show you documentation of the correspondence between me and my office. Whatever information you need, I showed them a business card. I was just trying to give them all the information they needed. I thought they would need to just believe me and believe the validity of the check. So I tried my best to give them as much information, but they still just kept saying, we feel uncomfortable and we're not going to deposit the check or open a bank account for you.
So here's a statement the bank sent. Pull it up, please. We take this matter very seriously and are investigating the situation. We have reached out to Dr. Mitchell Stewart to better understand what happened and apologize for her experience. Justin, have y'all heard from them?
Drinking water before bed burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks. If you are struggling to lose weight and you're...
We've heard from their attorneys, and it's been a direct response from the lawsuit being filed. And, with them responding to the lawsuit, they have expressed some regret as to what happened. But we have to realize that Dr. Mitchell Stewart filed a complaint at the bank a week after this incident occurred. So the incident occurred December 18th of 2021. She filed a complaint December 27th of 2021. She waited almost 30 days and she hasn't heard anything from the bank until this case started to go viral on social media. And after the case, began to go viral, that's when the bank started to send out overtures about some sort of apology. So we believe if there was an apology, which the bank has profusely apologized to multiple media outlets in response to media requests, we believe that those apologies are only coming from the fact that this story has gotten a lot of attention. And they basically shirked their responsibility to respond to the complaint that she filed, and they lost out on their opportunity to apologize then throughout that complaint process.
The thing that's really interesting here, Dr. Stewart, is
so the attorney goes on to talk about the history of Chase Bank and how they used to finance slavery and all kind of stuff, and how they've had a lot of bad PR over the decades of racism and whatnot. So it seems to still be prevalent.
Yeah, I've heard about Chase Bank. A lot of those places, have a history of racist behavior.
Wait, do I need to cancel this credit card I got with them?
That's a good question, sis. Should you?
I'm trying to figure out who the worst, Capital One or Chase. I'm thinking Chase
They
ain't
are
that
worse. They're all bad.
They real bad.
Yeah. And it's so interesting when you think about banking. And I remember there was this big thing about black banks a couple of years ago, and how well, at least there was a report here in Chicago where black banks were getting more deposits, and this is when the whole Black Lives Matter movement started to launch. But then what you start seeing is systematically all these black banks started closing. Now there's actually one black bank in Chicago. About 20, 30 years ago, you had at least about 10 of them. Now there's one.
Yep, that's how it is in Memphis. It's one. It used to be a couple. I think it was 2 or 3, but we down to one, and it is a what's it called? I've got Tri-State Bank. That's the only black bank we got left in Memphis.
Yeah, and Chicago used to have this one bank. It was actually the largest black bank in the Midwest, and they didn't close, but they sold to some company in Texas, and it's like because I used to have their money. I actually used to work for that bank a long time ago, and I still had some money in there. And once they sold it, I took all my money out of there.
Yeah. Well,
we were talking about some of our white brothers not being supportive in this effort to eradicate racism, bigotry. They signed that, I called it the anti-woke letter or a declaration, and a lot of the white pastors and stuff, some black pastors signed it too. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a real big to do a couple of years ago. Vody Balkum signed on to it, of course.
Oh my goodness.
Oh God.
Johnny Mack, a whole bunch of folks.
I can't take. I don't know who I can't deal with the most, Vody or our other brother. What's his name? No, Alton.
Oh. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna leave that alone.
That's my buddy. You heard me say my buddy. Alton, my buddy. Alton, no, with me and Alton, cool. I don't have no problem with Alton. At least he say who he is and what he believe in. So I ain't got no beef with him.
But I think we talked about this last time. Vody got caught. Vody wrote that book, and it turned out that he plagiarized the book and all kind of stuff. And then he said stuff he wrote in there wasn't even true. And yeah.
Well, this is what they do. They get people that look like us to say, hey, racism doesn't exist.
They always get people look like
CRT is a communist front, and how they like to label CRT is communist or socialist or whatever, anti-democratic ideology they want to pin it to. So they'll get somebody like Vody Bachman to kind of religicize it and say, well, it doesn't matter what color Jesus is, so that's that whole group of evangelicals, him and James White and all these other, people that holds up white supremacy in the name of Jesus. White Jesus at that.
Oh, you said white Jesus again.
White Jesus.
See, that ain't me saying that.
We need to stop using the moniker of Black Jesus, because we all know we all know what Jesus really was. So Jesus is Jesus. Now, when I talk about the white Jesus, that's the other Jesus.
Clear.
Jesus that white folks use.
I thought he was clear.
See, J-Mac trying to ignore the conversation. That's the Catholic that's saying that, J-Mac. So don't come for me. No, I'm just joking. I told you that is Father X. That ain't Father G.
And look, I grew up in the Catholic Church, so I know I've seen too many white Jesuses.
Man,
it's funny because I got a picture of Brother Jesus on my wall and here in the basement, right next to my my high school letter. And so when people come down here, if we playing instruments or just hanging out or whatever, and they look at I forget I even have it up there, and then someone will just look at that and go, "Oh,
you got Black Jesus on the wall." Yep.
Hey, it's Jesus with some color in his face.
But this is the
some pigmentation. What's wrong with that?
But this is the decolonization. This is the detoxing of how the system has ingrained white supremacy in us. I mean, we for years have, I would even admit it. When I was little, I thought Jesus was white.
Right.
Yep.
That's what we were taught. Yeah.
And if anybody here didn't think that when they was little, they are lying.
Right. Like they were woke when they were kids. Right.
Exactly. And this is why, with my daughter, the what she has on the wall is the real looking Jesus, or what Jesus probably looked like. It ain't no white Jesus.
Well, interesting. The Old Testament describes him as a unattractive man.
Yeah.
Why Black Jesus got to be unattractive? I'm just joking.
He had no beauty that we should behold him.
Right. So I think all of our pictures are wrong. To be honest with you.
Yeah, he does not look like Shamar Moore. He don't look, he sure don't look like Fabio.
Right. Don't look like Fabio. Don't look like Shamar. Yeah.
But contextually though, if you look at like one of the first historians that actually tried to give Jesus physical appearance was what was the famous Roman historian?
Tacitus?
No, not Tacitus. The one before.
Pliny?
No, not Pliny.
Josephus. Oh, yeah,
Josephus. And the thing was that because Josephus, even though he was,
he tried to describe Jesus' appearances.
Well, the thing about it is that Josephus, even though he was culturally, well, I wouldn't say he was culturally a Jew. He was just a Jew, by family lineage, but culturally he was Roman. And if you look at it, Romans didn't see Jews as good-looking people anyway.
Okay.
Because they were the oppressors. And as oppressors, just like white people are to us, they don't see beauty in us. So probably when we look at, texts that talk about, Jesus Christ outside of, the biblical, and scriptural canon, you probably would hear some people talk about how Jesus was short and he was stubby and, he had coarse hair and all this other kind of stuff. And they will refer to him as a ugly looking man. But that's from a Roman perspective, because that was the dominant culture during that time. I'm pretty sure somebody would, look at a typical Black person from the hood and, call him ugly because he got braids and he got his pants sagging down, or, or whatever.
Or a Jamaican with the Drasman.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Dreads are considered ugly nowadays.
Yeah.
To a point where they're trying to ban it from workplaces.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Well, they've been doing that. That's not new. But yeah, you're right. Growing up, not only Jesus, but Moses, Adam and Eve, Enoch. I mean, everybody was white. All the children of Israel, the Egyptians, Charleston Heston.
Exactly. That's what we grew up every year. Watch, Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, yeah.
You know
It's
what?
like,
That's the next subject I would like to talk about: systematic racism, how it crept into the church and into the Bible, and the image of the people in the Bible.
Well, you know what, Sister E, I got a brother, and he's got a channel. He does all kind of other stuff, but if I can try to get him on here because he deconstructs the whole construct of race. I mean, race is a made up construct anyway. So, but he goes into that in great detail, and I'd like to definitely get him to step over here sometime and just
that's cool.
Lay some of that down, yeah. Because that I mean, what it was about the 1500s or so when they came up with race to justify enslaving people. Yeah.
yeah, it was the idea was there, but I don't think it really got codified until I'd say the early part of the 19th, maybe some part in the 18th century. So Blumenbach was the one who really came up with that, but there was another. I want to say it was George Hegel, who also basically had the philosophical framework that set up what we call race right now. So it was definitely more towards the 19th century, but they did start speaking in terms of black and everything in the 14th and 15th centuries. They did start thinking, but it didn't become race until a couple few hundred years later.
Yeah, they tried to sociologists try to make it a science when you're talking about race during that time. But yeah, I think what Errol Spike was saying is that even though it was not clear, or it wasn't defined as race, it was still practiced in a way as race. But there was one document that kind of pinpointed the minds of white Europeans on indigenous and even and African people, or in particular African people, when you're talking about the writings of one particular Dominican Catholic priest named Bartholomew de las Casas.
Yeah.
And what he wrote was
I know him.
He was concerned. He was quote unquote concerned about the treatment of the Spaniards against the natives in South America. So when the king, I think it was Fernandez, who asked him, well, what do we do? Who's going to take on the labor of the that we have over here? He recommended Africans. And then at that point, that's when many people think that the transatlantic slave trade first kicked off during that time. Now, De las Casas was the one that went on Columbus's second trip to over here in this hemisphere. So he understood what a genocidal madman Columbus was, and he probably picked up some of them habits as well. And that's why he recommended Africans to be over here, because they done slaughtered a lot of the Native Americans anyway, especially the Taino Indians that were populating Hispaniola. So,
and then also the idea of race and superior race was, if I got this right, was lamented by Darwin. Darwin's theory of evolution, super race and natural selection and all that jazz. So, that kind of just try to justify some people being less human than others, and the whole monkey. You know what I saw yesterday? I don't know what I was watching. And they was talking about God, what was the name of that so-called man ape? It was a female.
Lucy.
Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy.
I still can't figure out if that's supposed to be something they just put through together and gave it a name, or if they really. I don't get me wrong. I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe that there are any monkey men. But I'm just trying to figure out if that they just totally fabricate Lucy. Because from what when I used to really dig into that, if I can remember, that whole thing was fabricated. But they're
A lot
still
of it was.
they're still pushing it as if it's real. That Lucy's was a real person, a real half monkey, half man, or half woman. If
All right, actually, if I can go to a quick tangent, I could tell you something about when it comes to, you know, evolutionary, like, because again, they've always still been looking for the quote unquote missing link between humans
right,
and apes. They have yet to ever find a. They found over the years that, for instance, back in the, I want to say it was late 1800s, early 1900s, they had finally said a skeleton of what called Piltdown Man, and they found out it was a hoax.
right.
But it was being promoted as this is the missing link, and it was not. Pete Kingman was another one. They were like, "Oh, we found the skeleton in China. Pete, he's the missing link." They found it was an old man who had rickets. So a lot of these
Then you
things that
had
they put, I think,
the Cambridge explosion that kind of should have put a lot of that to rest as well.
yeah, but unfortunately, like I said again, the current paradigm has to stay with the idea of that from the primordial slime due to radiation coming, cosmic radiation hitting the Earth at the time. It gave birth to amino acids, which became other more complex molecules, which became it's trash, according to physics. But it's the paradigm that everybody has to accept, or they have to accept the idea that there was an almighty creator, and they don't want to do that.
I know we're kind of off topic, but if
Yeah.
you look at it logically, and you look at human beings, you look at animals, you look at the planet, you look at the sea, you look at the stars, you look at DNA coding in and
Mm-hmm.
of itself. DNA coding is so complex. There is no
You
way
got it.
a trillion times a trillion times a trillion could that possibly be random.
No, it's not. It's not possible mathematically. They've already proven that mathematically. Say no. There's no way. DNA. I'm like, this is super advanced coding. This is a say. This is code. Say this is a program,
Right.
biological program that could not just happen from random bumping ends of amino acids coming together and forming a DNA molecule. Doesn't work.
Sister E, gentlemen, I have to leave because I got to get up in the morning. So,
Yeah, I do too.
But thank you all. Thank you, Sister E, for having me. I really appreciate, learned a lot. So
I did.
It's a great build, guys.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna cut it too because I'm getting a little tired as well, and I got to get up in the morning. Gardis, thank you so much for coming up here, and honestly, thank you as well. And J Mac.
Hey, Mr. Gardis, I ain't know you was radical like that right there though. Power to the people.
And he's a Bulls fan, so he's good with me.
I'm a Bulls fan. But I've enjoyed the show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. More dialogue is coming like this because I love the diversity. I love the diverse views and viewpoints. And in most cases, all throughout the conversation, we all agreed, but it was just the diversity that I like. Next conversation outside of critical race theory, I do want to do a segment on baptism. We have a brother in our community that is he's a good man of God, and he made a special request to me. He said, Sister E, I would love for you to do a segment on baptism. So whoever game, y'all come up here. We're gonna dedicate this to my brother Lonnie. We're gonna do this because he said dedicated to the Most High. I said, no, you asked for it, my brother. But he asked for it, and he's a good man. He's my brother. And I want to do this, and I want us to do this, and I want us to have a good discussion about baptism. So, and when he said, I said we were gonna do the conversation anyway, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Just be ready, and I want this panel up here because everybody has different viewpoints about baptism. Gardis, coming from the Catholic Church, we got J Mac. I may pull up. I'm gonna see if I can get Slick up here. We got Aerospike. I'm gonna see if I can snatch up Zadok to come up here and just get different. And I want to see if Brother Bruce will come up here as well because I want someone who's apostolic, And I know,
yeah, you're gonna really start a fight then.
oh yeah, I mean it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, and I'm gonna see if I can get honestly up here as well. And all of us get up here and we just talk about baptism and how baptism is how each group sees baptism. You know, how do we view baptism? And that'll be a good conversation. So tell me what y'all look like. I want to get that done. I want to do that very soon. I want to do that very soon.
Will do.
All right. All right, family. Well, I thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for watching us. Thank y'all for being involved. Like I said, be ready for more conversations like this. Like I said, I've enjoyed it. Thank you all for all your super chats. Thank you for your support. If anybody has channels, please tell them your channels or how to reach out to you, and then we're gonna close out.
Well, I'm
I
the
ain't got no
English one.
chance.
I have no
But
channel.
shalom. Me either. Shalom.
I have several channels, but JT Mac is one, and I got modern disciples. So I have several channels. Yeah.
Yep. So everybody subscribe. Thank y'all so much for supporting us. And I'll see y'all next week. All righty.
All right. Peace.